I'm Rosemary. I'm a product manager. I've been a product manager for coming on 8 years now. I started my career actually with a public policy degree. I was getting a master's at NYU, and I was invited by a professor to apply to an internship at a nonprofit tech startup called Case Commons. So I started there as an intern and really made user research and testing the things that I really wanted to focus on, and that ended up being a really phenomenal avenue into product management. So I stayed there for 3.5 years. It was fascinating. We were working with state government agencies. And from there, I moved on to ThoughtWorks because I wanted to get a little bit more of a diverse experience with products, be able to switch domains and tech stacks. And then I really, really wanted to move internationally because I've got this amazing passport situation. And I put the word out that I was looking to move to Europe, and Pivotal Labs came calling and said, we've got an office in London. Would you like to be our first product manager on the ground there? And I said, yep. And so I ended up over there in under a month and spent 2.5 years with Pivotal Labs in London. And then went with freelance and started consulting for startups in London, and have very recently joined Mind the Product as Director of Training Products, so working on creating a training platform and service for Mind the Product to create a global network of amazing trainers and workshops that we can serve PMs around the world with. I think you're going to see product managers definitely take on a lot more of the design capacity. You're going to see product managers who are definitely really strong product people on the business side. You're going to see really cross-functional teams emerge with product very much driving the center of them. So yeah, I think you're just going to start seeing the concept of a full stack PM continue to emerge as product managers start understanding all of the different skill sets that they can acquire and really drive towards the ones that they're most passionate about. I think it's really important to make sure that you have open lines of communication with stakeholders at a regular cadence. I think one of the lessons that I learned recently was that silence from your stakeholders in the business does not necessarily equal a yes or an affirmation for your vision. It can sometimes just mean that they're delaying the no. So it means that you're building up risk if you're leaving the silence too long. So one of the things that I try to make sure that I do is weekly touch points with groups of stakeholders in the same room where you're checking in on the goals, making sure that people feel satisfied with the direction that the product is going in, making sure that nothing has changed in terms of someone's outlook. And if you can't get your group of stakeholders in the same room, then make sure that you're doing a weekly email, 3 to 5 bullet points highlighting what you're working on that week, what's changed, when you expect to release certain things, and just make sure that you're getting that in front of people's faces as often as possible. Because then if they disagree, at least you can say, well, I told you a while ago, which is helpful. I think there's a tool and a process that I really like employing when I'm coming into an organization. I call them stakeholder interviews, which is a fancy name for just talking to all of the people in the organization and getting a sense of what their goals are for the next 6 months, what their challenges are, what they feel that the organization is doing well, what their vision for the product roadmap is. So there's amazing sort of stakeholder interview templates that you can get your hands on. But if you do that with various people from different departments and people on the product team, you're going to start seeing patterns emerge in answers. And it's going to give you a really nice gauge of where the organization is as a whole, how well aligned it is, how much people are communicating with each other, and where some challenges and pain points are that you maybe want to keep an eye on. And it also helps spread people out over the chessboard that product managers need to keep their eyes on, because most problems that product managers encounter are usually of the political variety as opposed to the product variety. So it's really helpful to start establishing relationships with people in the organization early. I think one of the ways in which you can best introduce change is by showing that you're creating value or that you are having small successes. So if you're looking to implement a change in the process of a product team, one of the ways that I found to be helpful is to try to introduce small projects that allow value to emerge really quickly. So try to get a gauge of the different KPIs or metrics that the team is attempting to drive towards. Because I think if you can show success, you can show value, that opens the team up to change a little bit more readily than you saying, okay, we're just going to overhaul everything without necessarily showing that it works. Because when a team is shown a situation where it's working, where it's being implemented, then it's really hard for them to deny that it works. So certain consultancies like Pivotal Labs use this very well in that they immerse their clients in an office where every team around them is working in that particular way. And so they get to see daily examples of stand-ups and of retros and of feedback sessions and of user research and of synthesis and of rapid prototyping. And it's exciting and there's a lot of energy in that. And it can be a really helpful way of sort of opening people's minds to maybe this could work for us. I think the most important thing is to really try to immerse yourself in the product management field. I know some people approach me and say, I'm really only interested in working with health products. Or I'm really only interested in working on mobile apps. And that's fine, but you're limiting yourself in terms of the perspectives that you're going to be exposed to. So I always encourage the participants of my workshops or the people who come to my classes to start following people on Twitter who look interesting. Make sure you've got a bead on maybe 5 to 10 blogs that you're checking on regularly. Ask people about the books that they love or that they keep with them. Make sure that you buy those books and read them and highlight them. Make notes in the margins. And definitely try to find 1 or 2 meetups that you like going to, because it's the community around you that's going to be most important as you are looking for your first job, or as you're in your first job or your second job or your third job, actually. Because it's really important when you're struggling to be able to call up a mate who's a product manager and say, what would you do in this circumstance? How would I handle this? How should I structure this meeting? I can't get the stakeholder to pay attention to me. And that's when you really want to make sure that you've got a solid community around you so that you can ask questions. And every single job I've ever gotten has come through a friend or a network connection, somebody that I've met personally. So it's a really, really important thing for career advancement and progression to make sure that you're investing in the community and being an organic part of it. I definitely think that the thought process of hypothesis and validation is really important for product managers to have. Anytime somebody comes to me and says, this is 100% the solution, I think that is definitely not going to be the solution. You have to be open to being wrong. So coming up with things that are framed as, I would bet, or I'm going to guess, and then figuring out how you go about proving that is a very, very valuable thing for product managers to do, because it decreases risk. It means that you're not investing 6 months of time into something that you're sure is correct, but have never bothered to check. So it's all about having 1,000 little experiments a week, and then being able to kind of continue to move forward to the vision while making adjustments for change. I think it can be one of the most difficult parts of organizational transformation is it's very difficult for leaders to let go. They're used to having to be the ones to make the decision, and sometimes they like it, sometimes they're just used to it. So one of the things that I found to be really helpful is, as opposed to telling leaders you have to trust and empower your team, help them orient their perspective to listening to users. So if you become an organization that has introduced the user voice as part of the decision-making process, that's a big step towards them letting go of having to be the one that's right and making the decision all the time. And because the user voice is coming to this leader through a product manager or a designer or the product team, then that means that they're inherently having to sort of orient themselves to hearing other people. And it can be a really nice way of helping them open themselves up to different opinions and to different ideas, and to allowing their decisions to be influenced by things outside of their direct control, which I think can be really helpful. So we were able to delve into some of the surveys that Mind the Product has collected over the last couple of years. And one of them had around 1,200 responses from product managers from all over Europe. And I was able to take a pretty big sample of them and analyze the results around one specific question, which I was really interested in the answer. And it was, what's your biggest challenge as a PM? And by a magnitude of almost 12 percentage points, the number one answer was stakeholder communication and management. So the biggest challenge that product managers are experiencing is not implementing a product or building something on a technical stack or figuring out how to roll out, or problems with figuring out what the user wants. Their biggest challenge is getting the organization to support them in this process. And I think for me, that was a big eye-opener in terms of how Mind the Product can serve our customers, is to try to help give them the tools to communicate their role and how the role is bringing value to an organization. And hopefully that'll help them navigate the political waters that are sort of preventing them from being successful. So I would love to see us be able to kind of build a couple of trainings that really address that need.